There we go. Welcome everyone to Revolutionary Resume Next Level. So happy that you all are here to join in and be a part of this necessary presentation and conversation, I hope. My goal is to be able to share the information that I have with you today, but I also want you, as I go through the presentation, for you all to take notes and ask any critical questions that you may, or pressing questions that you may have on your mind. So for those of you that do not know, I am Dr. Johnette Ruffner-Caesar. I am one of two career counselors in the CCAS Career Services Department. We are housed within Graduate Student Services. And so again, I'm very happy that you all are here with me today. So if you would give me a moment, I want to take this time to share my screen. Let's see here. Okay, one more time in the chat. Can you all see my slides? The first slide should say Revolutionary Resume Next Level. And you can come off of mute or put it in the chat. Okay, Emily, I'm assuming. Okay, thank you, Emily and Yolanda. I appreciate it. Okay, so again, welcome to Revolutionary Resume Next Level. I am Dr. Johnette Ruffner-Caesar, and welcome. As I mentioned before, I am one of two in the CCAS Career Services team. My colleague is Erin Ahart. So we are here to support you with your resume questions, interview questions, career path questions, whatever support you need as it relates to moving through your career path trajectory journey. We are here to support you. I want to give you a little bit of information about myself, that in addition to being a career counselor at GW, and I will say that I'm part-time, I'm not a full-time counselor here, but what I do full-time is that I own a professional services agency for the past 6 years. I am also an adjunct professor, and my background, I'm coming to this space after having a career of 16 plus years in higher education administration and in the education nonprofit space. I'm also a children's book author. I possess a BA, a master's, and a doctorate. And so, that's a little bit about my professional educational background. But what I really want you to know in here, and really how I got into this space and why I chose to work at GW in the capacity that I'm working, is because I am a layoff survivor. So after I earned my doctorate, which is my third degree, I experienced not one, but two layoffs. Now, that wasn't in my mind supposed to happen, right? If you're anything like me, my family taught me to go to school, get a good education, get a good job quickly, and I'll stress quickly, and live happily ever after. And it just didn't happen that way. And the support that I needed, I had trouble finding that level of support. And it wasn't just about the fundamentals of resume writing or interviewing. There were some other things, like my emotional state. If you can imagine, I was really scared, I was embarrassed, I was confused, I was frustrated, angry. And it made me, or forced me, to go through a process that I don't think many people go through when it comes to, again, preparing documents to move forward in an academic career setting or situation. And that's a part of the session that I think is unique that I want to provide with you all today. So, you know, as it relates to crafting the right documents and standing out, there's a part that comes before constructing a resume, right? There's a whole part that most career counselors are not talking about. So, because I have that information, because I have that experience, I think I'm bringing forth some innovative information forward that most students and certainly most professionals in their field just are not obtaining. And so I'm happy to be able to be here to share that information with you. And because of my process and my career trajectory, I refer to myself oftentimes as a reinvention champion. That's because I had to take and assess all of my academic background, my professional background, and bring all of those things together to create something that I want, something that's meaningful to me. And what I want you to take away from this, what I want you to hear from this, right, is that degrees are tools. Okay. Degrees are tools. And like any tool, a hammer, a screwdriver, or whatever the case may be, those tools are only as good as your ability to use them. And so I know sometimes students leave their program, expecting to go in one direction, but then, or even sometimes, even before you graduate, some students graduate, they have a change of heart. They want to do something else. And I'm here to tell you that you can do something else. And if you have a change of heart, if you're questioning about the industry that you want to go into, even if you have another degree, one, it's natural. Two, it's okay. Because degrees are designed to communicate or indicate that you have the ability to master information. It is not designed to keep you locked into that space, right? It's to master information. And understanding that will help you not to have any angst if you are a little confused about the direction that you want to go to, or if once you graduate, you find yourself having trouble securing an opportunity. All right. And so, as I told you, my background is in education, higher ed, and an education nonprofit. But now I own a professional services agency. So, again, all of those things help to prepare me for what I'm doing now and something that I so dearly love. So I want you to really keep that in mind as we go forward. So our learning objectives for today, I want to help you to unlock the secrets to crafting an irresistible resume. I want you to receive the secret sauce to capturing the attention of hiring managers. And I want you to learn to narrate your professional story in a way that not only excites hiring managers, but also showcases your unique strengths and accomplishments. Okay. Let's skip. So the first thing I want you to know is that the resume writing process is a two-part process or a two-step process. Many people start with the fundamentals, the format, the content, bullet points, the font, the wording. Yes, all of that is important. Absolutely. But before you get to the formatting, there's a process, there's a mental process that one may need to go through. And I know that some of you are at different levels. Some of you may have already graduated and you may be finding some challenges or encountering some challenges to secure a role, or you're just beginning this process. But either way, this is food for thought and something that I really want to encourage you to dig into. And so when I mean mental process, I firmly believe that what you think about determines what you believe, and what you believe determines how you feel. And how you feel determines the decisions you will make, including how you construct your resume. One example of this is I've been on many hiring committees. And in my business, I have a lot of experience, of course, looking at resumes. And I can always tell when someone is desperate for a job, can always tell. And the way that I can tell is because they include everything they've ever done into their resume. Because the thought is if I include everything, I'm bound to catch something. And that's not a good way to approach it. And it's not an effective way to approach it. This process requires introspection. It requires you knowing, first of all, what do you want? What type of opportunity are you pursuing? And when I say knowing what you want, let me be a bit more specific. Not only type of role, right? But and not only the industry, what type of salary are you looking to have? What type of work specifically do you enjoy doing, right? What culture do you work best in? What do you work better independently or in a team? These are all things that are very important for you to outline to support you as you go through looking for opportunities, but also to support you as you go through to construct your resume. And so it is a very intentional process, and it's one that should be used to indicate or share your confidence by communicating your confidence and your ability to identify and own your professional value and power. Before I go any further, I just want to ask everyone to put yourselves on mute if you would. I just hear some noise in the background. These things are very important because if you don't have confidence, that can come through in your resume as well. You will have a tendency not to articulate all of the things, well, the important and relevant things that you've done. You could hide your work behind the fact that you worked in a team, being afraid to really stand out and shine and share on your resume what you actually did. And so again, that's all about mindset. That's all about being introspective, about what you want, where you are, and how you feel about yourself, what you know about yourself. Do you know what you do well or not so well? Do you know why a company should hire you? How are you and why are you an asset to a particular organization? So these are all of the things that are very important as you move forward to construct your resume. And it comes, like I said, before the fundamentals as it relates to formatting and all of the components that should be included. So I'm going to hold questions for last because I want to make sure that we get through all of the information. And then I'm happy to have a full conversation towards the end. So what I would like to do, and this is here's the truth about resume writing. It's about introspection, knowing yourself, communication and confidence, and identifying and owning your professional value and power. So I want to just kind of give you some highlights around our session 2 weeks ago. We have broken this session into two parts, revolutionary resume back to basics and revolutionary resume next level. So if you did not participate in back to basics, that's okay. But you would like that information, we certainly can provide you with the replay. But this session is for individuals who have a pretty good handle on resume writing. And you need some additional tips to make your resume come alive. But for those who did not participate in Back to Basics, I just want to go through and give you some high level general things that you should know as you move forward. So in terms of length, you should only have a one-page resume if you have fewer than 5 to 7 years of experience. So essentially anything under 7 years, you should only have a one-page resume. Your margin should be about 3/4 inch to 1 inch on all sides. You should use sans serif fonts. That could be a Times New Roman, a Calibri, a Cambria in 10 to 12 point size. That's because it's easier. Those fonts are easier to read on a computer screen. Okay. Don't use templates, columns, tables, graphics, pictures. Yes, these things are pretty, but just understand, one, hiring managers really want the content, right? Yes, it needs to look clean, it needs to look professional, but I tend to be a little leery about really pretty resumes because I've noticed that the prettier it is, the less content or significant content is included. And content is everything. All right. Content is everything. The other thing that you want to be aware of as it relates to templates is that some templates are not ATS, applicant tracking system friendly, which means if you're submitting your resume through some type of system, the ATS system, like if you're uploading it somewhere, they're typically going to use an ATS system, which is designed to identify the best candidates for the role. So it will pick out keywords, mainly keywords, to determine who goes to the next level. Unfortunately, although it's getting better, some of those systems can scramble the information. So if you have lots of graphs and charts, that information may be scrambled and may not come through as effectively. However, a template is okay if you are emailing a resume to someone. That's a different story. But again, it can get a little squirrely if you're uploading your resume to certain systems, and there's no way to know what systems are going to have that impact on your resume. So just keep that in mind. Be consistent. Use the same formatting and style throughout. So for instance, if you make the title of a role that you had in all caps, make sure it's in all caps for each job. If something is italicized, italicize it for each job. So be consistent. If you're using Arial, use Arial across the board, or well, Times Roman or Cambria or Calibri. Be consistent across the board. Bullet points. Don't use sub-levels, meaning use just one level for a bullet, but don't put any sub information under those things. And don't use color, right? Just use straight black. Don't use red, purple, anything like that. We want to be as conservative as possible. Your dates and location of your role should usually be flush to the right-hand side of the document. You can use all caps or small caps, bolds and italics. You can use that. But again, do it consistently. The other thing about a resume is do not write in first person using I or me, and only include relevant information. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means as we move forward. Okay. So here's some information too that you should include, and I'm sure most of you know this. To include in your resume. And that information is, of course, academics, right? Your education, relevant coursework, class projects, research, work experience, leadership experience, volunteer experience, publications, clubs and organizations, technical skill certifications, honors, fellowships, and awards. These are all things that you can include in your resume. I will say that as it relates to education and relevant coursework, there may be a world if you have more work experience, but let me say it this way. For students, in the way you arrange your resume, having education first, we put that first because most students don't have a lot of work experience. And so right now, until you get work experience, your education speaks for you, okay? That's why we put that information at the top. But as you obtain more experience, you're now, 10 years into the work world, your education can be moved down to either the middle or the bottom of your resume because now you have work experience that can speak on your behalf, right? So education and work experience are interchangeable depending on the amount of years of experience that you have. So just something to keep in mind. Okay. Um, so hold on one second. All right. So I just want to tap on this a little bit to give you an example of what a header would look like on your resume. If you are still using your full address, please don't do that. One, it's a security issue. You don't want folks knowing where you live. And also, it's no longer necessary because you're submitting things electronically. No one is going to be mailing you anything until you have actually secured the job. And the other thing to consider, instead of address, only include city and state because some hiring managers want to know, where you're located. And then if you don't have your LinkedIn profile link associated with your resume, consider doing that only if your LinkedIn profile is up and ready to go, meaning you have a profile picture and you have the same information on your LinkedIn profile as you do on your resume. Here's what an education section could look like. As I mentioned before, you have the city, flush to the right, you have the dates. Let me highlight here. Many students will sometimes put the month and year of when they started, right? And they put dash present. The proper way to say that is expected graduation, right? You could put expected graduation or just expected, and then you put the month and the year. Okay. So don't put the month and year you started to present, just put expected or expected graduation, and then that month and year. And so again, here's an example of how you can include your education, the degree that you are pursuing, any fellowships or awards, any honors, studying abroad. You could include your GPA if you'd like. I tell students that, sure, when you're starting off in the workforce, you can include your GPA, but just know that as you move further in your career, most organizations don't really care about your GPA. They don't care because it's not necessarily relevant to the job. They want to know, do you have the skills to do the job? And a resume doesn't necessarily convey that. So keep that in mind. In the experience section, you want to make sure that you are describing any experience that you have that positions you or says that you are the right person for the role. Okay. You want to include, of course, focus on the skills you use. Focus on projects that you worked on, software that you use. You want to quantify as much as possible and how you brought value in that role. As you go on to articulate and construct statements that are powerful and again, demonstrate that you are the right person for the opportunity. I'm going to talk more about this in a second, but again, just giving you a high level overview before we go into the other components of this session. This is what your professional experience section can look like. Again, you see where the person worked, their title, and then bullet points to demonstrate what I was just saying. So in this case, you see lead team of 5 workers. We're quantifying, doing what? Advertising, career-related programming, by developing and disseminating weekly newsletter to how many? Approximately 7,000 undergraduate and graduate students. That's a solid, a sound way to align and position yourself and give in a very small snippet a very good story about what you did in that particular role. Okay. All right. Again, some other sections that you can include in your resume are a separate section where you can talk about leadership opportunities, volunteering clubs, technical skills. If you speak other languages, you can include those sections in your resume as well. One thing that I want to say before we move to the next slide is about volunteering. Volunteering counts as work experience if, and I do stress, if it is relevant to the roles that you are seeking. So let's just say you're having trouble finding a job. I always encourage folks, consider volunteering. Be in an area where you want to, in the industry where you're pursuing work, okay? It does a couple of things. It gives you additional experience, but it also helps you to expand your network because now you're working at an organization where people are getting to know your work, and those individuals can serve as references for you moving forward. The other thing it does is by volunteering, you could actually end up securing a role at that very organization, right? If they have space or if you're able to create a position for yourself. So I'm saying think outside of the box and know that no, you may not be getting paid, but you are still doing something that moves you further in the direction of the role that of the types of roles that you are seeking. So please keep that in mind. So here is an example of what that this section could look like as it relates to community and volunteer activities, technical skills, etc. Okay. Here are some don'ts. There's no need to include at the bottom of a resume references available upon request. Putting that line, you could use that line for other information. It is assumed that you can provide references if they request them. So there's no need to put that. Do not clutter your resume with non-essential information. And again, I'll talk more in a minute about what's relevant. Do not make any misrepresentations. Don't oversell. Don't put anything that's false in your resume. Don't include personal information unless you're filling out an application online where it requests this information, but this is not information like your social security number, age, or whatever that should be included in your resume. And as I mentioned before, don't include any special graphics and definitely don't include your photograph unless it's requested. And most resumes are not going, you're not going to need that unless you're applying for, I don't know, some type of art job or modeling or something to that effect. But otherwise, there's no need to include that type of information. And so this is essentially what, for a basic resume, the format of your resume should look like, with your name at the top, your contact information, education, then professional experience, and then any community or volunteer activities, and then technical skills at the bottom. So, you know, there are many variations of how a resume can look. This is just one example, okay? One example. But please note how clean it is. The bullet points that draw one's attention. You have lines separating the sections. It's not a lot of clutter. I can easily read that. So keep that in mind as you move forward. Okay. So one thing I want to do here, let's see, where are we? I'm sorry, you all. If you can just give me a thumbs up to let me know that everyone is still with me and following. Just a thumbs up if you're still with me and able to follow. Okay, very good. All right. Thank you, you all. Okay, so let's dig in a bit further. Um, it's important to know when you are highlighting your duties in a resume and you want to really articulate what you've done, the work you've done. The reason it's important to tell a story, and here's the formula. What did you do? How did you do it? And what were the results? And try to quantify the results or the intended results. What did you do? How did you do it? And what were the results? And if you recall, as I just read, I showed you an example in the professional experience section of the resume of one of the slides that I just shared with you. Under the career counselor, talked about having led students and worked with over 7,000 undergraduate and graduate students. So it's what they did, how they did it, and the results. So keep that in mind. And people remember that. They don't just remember um, I supported 7,000 students. That doesn't say much of anything. Or I led the ABC group. You haven't said what the ABC group is, what it was intended to do, what were the results of leading the ABC group. You haven't said anything. And so what many people do, unfortunately, is copy and paste from their previous job role, right? Announcement or description. And those descriptions are designed to just kind of give a high level overview of what the job entails, but it doesn't go into the meat of what you actually did. So as you are breaking down, wanting to convey what you've done, these are things to keep in mind. Telling your story also shows the reader that you are a compelling candidate and that you have a good understanding of your professional brand and your professional value. What do you bring to the table? If you think about it in terms of a commercial, for instance, watch a commercial and look at how they convey why you should buy that particular product, right? And think about what's appealing to you in that. That's the same way you should think about yourself as you are pursuing new professional opportunities. What is my brand? When someone hires me, what are they going to get? What is my specialty, right? That is your brand. That is your unique value. Um, Also, in a resume or in an interview, tell why you want the opportunity. And telling that why can go into a career summary or it can go into a cover letter. Why are you interested? Why are you a good fit? Right? All of those things. And then include, again, the relevant skills, tasks, and actions. What's relevant? Yes, you may have done many things, right? But think about out of all of those things, even if you have a job that isn't a direct connection to the role that you are pursuing, there are things called transferable skills, right? So identify the skills. If they're looking for someone who has good communication skills, and you were I don't know, you worked at a I don't know, a daycare center, right? But you were in charge of doing an intake or talking with parents. Those are presentation skills, communication skills, right? So even though you didn't do it in the same setting of where you're trying to get a job, you still have skills doing it. So think about it in that way. And rather than cancel out that experience to say, well, it's not connected to what I've done or what I'm pursuing, but think about the skills instead and going through that exercise in every opportunity you've had, be it an internship, being a volunteer situation, or being an actual paying job. Okay. You also want to ask what's relevant, right? Experiences that relate. What's helpful for them to know in relationship to the job? So sometimes, information is provided, but it's your job again to make the connection, right? How is what I've done relevant or relate to what they're asking for? Because again, your resume should be constructed in a way that says that you are the best person or the best fit for the job. Next, use their language to show your accomplishments. So I'm going to show you this in a second. But in job announcements, you should read them very carefully because the language they use will help you to determine the type of culture. It will help you to determine really what they're looking for, what types of skills, and you want to be able to use that language back. So let's just say the job announcement says we're looking for an innovative team member. Well, that word innovative could tell you a little bit about the organization, that they're flexible, they're looking for new ideas, that it's a space for you to be creative. In your resume, you could respond back and say, I have created, well, not I have, uh, created or developed innovative workshops or innovative systems that improved overall. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of something else that improved the morale of the team or something to that effect, right? So that's what I mean about giving them language back to them. But in order to be able to do that, you need to be able to know how to read the job announcement carefully and constructively. And then finally, ask yourself, so what? Meaning, are you telling the full story about your work and accomplishments that relates to what the job announcement is, right? So everything that you want to include, ask yourself, okay, I want to include this now, so what? Is it relevant? Does this support my candidacy for this position? If it doesn't, then you do one of two things. Think through that particular duty that you perform more carefully to explore, are there some things about this role that I have not pulled out and conveyed? Or do I need to eliminate some information, right? So keep that in mind. That is the process of really digging in deep to discover the jewels of your background and not just telling a surface level story. I think that is one of the number one problems, one of the maybe the number one problem with resumes is that they're surface level. Not enough people tell the story to dig in deeper so that the reader gets a better understanding of your background and your experience. Okay, I know we spent a lot of time there. The next part to this is to analyze and align. And this is where we go into looking at the job announcements to review the position for the key skills, tasks, and actions. And asking yourself again, how have you used these tools and what related experiences do you have? So I want to start off giving you an example. So here's a job announcement from the Bates White Economic Consulting Firm. And you see here in blue, they're using some really clear language here. Passionate problem solvers, that's who they're looking for. Clear communicators with strong principles, dynamic approaches. And Bates White specializes in providing what? Advanced economic, financial, and econometric analysis to who? Law firms, companies, and government agencies. That tells you a lot. They're looking for passionate people. They're looking for problem solvers. They're looking for clear communicators. They're looking for people who want to work with law firms, companies, and government agencies. They help clients do what? Tackle tough issues with confidence and pride, right? So those everything on this page gives you a lot of information, and not only about the job, but about the culture of the organization. And you would have to ask yourself, is this a good fit for me? Is this somewhere based on what I see, this small snippet, is this a good place for me? So if we take another step further, we're looking at skills, key skills. And you see where I've underlined certain words: develop, contribute, conduct, review, draft, create, process, produce, right? Develop rigorous economic or financial analysis. That's a skill. And being able to carefully, and I encourage you as you're going through job announcements, do the same, underline, ask yourself, is this a good fit, right? Is this something that I want to do? But again, in order to know that, you have to have done that introspective work that I talked about at the beginning of the session. I'm sorry, y'all, my battery's running a little low. Okay. So the other component to this is related to what will you actually be doing? Like I said, developing rigorous economic or financial analysis, conducting industry research, reviewing deposition testimony, creating data visualizations. Again, understanding, is this me? Do I have this skill set? Now, do you have to have everything? No, absolutely not. Um, if you think you have something that you can contribute, go ahead and apply. And I know sometimes individuals won't apply because they feel like they don't have all that's being asked for. My suggestion is apply anyway. If you feel like you have some of the qualifications, apply. You never know what can happen as a result. So don't hold back because you don't think you're 100% qualified. The next component is related to sort of attributes to the organization, their culture. So in gold, you see rigorous, a collaborative environment, work closely with consultants, research, writing, critical thinking skills. These is a compilation of skills as well as an indication around culture. So again, going back to alignment, analysis, and alignment by highlighting, underlining these things, and going back and looking at what you want out of a role, comparing the two, and doing your due diligence to look at your current resume and saying, what do I have here? Right? What don't I have? What do I have in my head that I know that I have not conveyed in my resume, that I need to pull out and convey in this document to better position myself for this particular opportunity? Okay. So one way to go about constructing your experience is using the STAR method. S stands for skill, T, task, A, action, R, results. And so with skill, you're asking yourself, what skill or strength did you demonstrate in a specific situation? Did you organize or lead or create something? As it relates to task, was there a specific task related to the position where you developed a procedure that's related to the role that you're pursuing? What actions did you take within the role? Did you, again, create a method, instructed a class, etc.? R for results. As a result of you working there, what changed? Did you change anything? Did you create anything? Did you institute anything? Did you transform anything that basically could demonstrate that you were an asset in that previous role, which means you could also be an asset to this new organization that you are pursuing an opportunity with? Okay. So here's how you can turn your story, turning a story into bullet points in your resume. And I'll just share all of them. So let's just say, looking on the left-hand side, you know that one of your primary responsibilities as a marketing intern was to develop a content calendar for the company. That's a skill. If you look to the right-hand side, how can you write that in a resume? You develop an 8-week content calendar. Look at the numbers. Doing what? This is you developed the calendar. Great. Now, how did you do it? You focused on the company's strategic social media plan. What were the results or intended results? The company's website received a traffic increase of 12%. Okay. And the same is true for all of these. For tasks, your goal was to create a long-term strategy as well as a 6-week content calendar. That was a task. On the right, you collected creative content under the direction of the marketing team to promote the company's campaign that encouraged a reevaluation of the brand. And so you can see for each one of these how to create a statement related to skill, task, action, or results. And that's the kind of story we want to tell, right? What did you do? How did you do it? What were the results or the intended results? And quantify as much as possible. Okay. This is how you can use the STAR approach in your cover letter, LinkedIn, or interview. One of my, again, this is the same components that we use in the previous slide, but you were now talking in sort of first person, where you can write in first person in a cover letter on LinkedIn. You can, of course, speak in first person in an interview. And what they're asking, particularly in an interview. So, Chelsea, tell us a little bit about yourself. They're not asking for you to detail your life story. Well, I have a brother and I'm from here. No, they're asking, tell us a bit about yourself in terms of your ability to be successful in the role that you are. Hi, everyone. Are you still there? Okay, my apologies.
Yes.
Had a little technical difficulty. Give me one moment and I will restart the presentation here. There we are. Okay, there we are. Okay, so I think where I left off at is that you can use the STAR method to create a message for your cover letter, LinkedIn, and interview. And I was sharing with you that in an interview, they're asking you to tell them a bit about yourself in context to the role that you are pursuing. And again, this is not only where you have a solid resume, but you're doing the introspective work as well, where you're able to clearly articulate and say, or express your background, right? To share what skills you have, what your professional value is, what are you known for, and not being afraid to articulate and share that information. So many times I've worked with private clients as well as students where there tends to be a bit of a fear, and maybe not so much fear, but a concern on whether or not you can say certain things, that you don't want to sound too, you don't want to sound like you're bragging. And so it's not bragging if you're just stating facts. And there's a way to express these facts without, as you say, maybe tooting your horn too much, right? But you want to be able to go back in your experience and being able to let hiring managers know the whole goal here is to say, I'm qualified for the role. Here's why. Here's what I've done. And that you can speak clearly and confidently about your background and your capacity to serve well in that particular role. Okay. So as we move towards a close and I want to open the floor to questions, I want to make you aware of a couple of resources that are at your disposal. So this particular session is one of 10 sessions in our career readiness workshop series. So we've had a session on interview with ease, and we've done one session on, again, resume back to basics. And then we have this session, Revolutionary Resume Next Level. We'll do a repeat of this session tomorrow at 4:00 if you know of some individuals who you believe should be a part of the conversation. And we have some other events through April. And so please make sure you check out the CCAS events page, and you will be able to see all of those offerings. These offerings are also listed in Handshake. And if you are on our email list, you will also see the next upcoming opportunities where you can register as well. In addition to that, our office offers one-to-one career advising. So you can meet with either me or Aaron to have a conversation around the specifics of your resume. If you have some questions about strategically planning your career, support with LinkedIn, anything related to any support that you need related to your career, we are available to support you. And the way that you connect with us is via Handshake. You can look at our appointment blocks, and you can identify one of us to schedule one of those sessions. In addition, on Handshake, if you have not used that platform, please know that there are a whole host of jobs, internships. There's a resource library, over 500,000 employer profiles for you to be used as a resource, again, to help you to move to your next career, your next job, your first time job. So please keep that in mind. The other resource via Handshake is GW VMOC. And essentially, the one aspect of VMOC that I want to highlight is that you can receive an AI-generated resume review, which can be very helpful in supporting you with making some adjustments, okay? And then last but not least, I want to encourage you, please, and we did a session during the fall term called Working Your Network, and we're going to do it again this term. But it is critical as you are going through this process to secure career opportunities. You must ignite, tap into your network. Your network should absolutely consist of not only us from career services, but the people within your department. As career services specialists, we are generalists, right? We are not specialists in your industry. So that's why we encourage you to tap into your faculty members, professors that you may have had classes with or not. Take a look at their background. And if they if there's something in their background that interests you, and even if it doesn't, set some time to go see them during office hours. You don't have to go see them just for, class related things, but have a conversation with them. Let them know what types of opportunities you are pursuing, and if they would be willing to support you by making you aware of any opportunities that you should be involved in. And by doing that, you are now also establishing a good relationship with those individuals that you could potentially use as a reference if they are willing to do so for you. So keep that in mind. I can't tell you how many students get to graduation and they've made no connections, or graduate have made no connections to the people in their department. Those individuals are vital, critical, particularly if you are planning to stay in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area, because it's such a competitive environment, of course, depending on industry. But make sure don't underutilize that resource in the faculty members and even in the staff members in your department. Tap into alumni on LinkedIn. There are alumni communities, George Washington alumni communities. There may be specific to your particular school or industry. Look into that. Become a part of those communities, because you will find that many alumni are more than willing to support you with not only securing a job, but maybe even giving you some advice related to your resume, that is specific to your industry. And coupled with that, on LinkedIn, make connections on LinkedIn. Again, if there are people in your industry that their career path you found interesting, or they are where you want to be, reach out to them. Now, I will say there is a technique to reaching out. Don't reach out and say, "Hi, I'm a GW student graduating in May and I'm looking for a job." They probably won't connect with you, especially if they're not responsible for hiring individuals. But if you say something like, "I am a GW student, graduating in May, I majored in blah, blah, blah. I find your background really interesting. You are in a space or in a role that I hope to pursue or obtain, in the future. And I would love to talk with you about how you got there." That works because people are always happy, usually to help a student, usually very interested in talking about themselves, and in talking about themselves that they can help someone. That's really a win-win situation, right? Don't get frustrated if you don't get immediate responses back, especially if you're reaching up to the CEO or director level. You don't know how often people actually check LinkedIn, right? But that's not a reason to not try, and not a reason to not continue to pursue these kinds of connections, okay? All of it is critical, all of it is key. Networking is definitely a critical part, to the resume construction process, but also getting your resume into the hands of the right people, okay? So I hope that helps. So what I would like to do, thank you all so much for just being so attentive. And so I would like to open the floor. I'm going to stop my share here, is to open the floor for any questions or comments. Any questions or comments. And you can either come off of mute, or you can put those questions or comments in the chat.
Oh,
And if
sure.
there, oh, yes.
Sorry. No, you finish your sentence.
I was just going to say, I would love, even if you don't have a question, please provide feedback, because I want to make sure that we are providing information that's helpful to you. And if there's something that you need and didn't get, I want to make sure that we start to include that information in our presentations. Okay. Carrie, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering how on a resume you would format jobs that you've come back to, and not necessarily like seasonal jobs, but like for instance, I worked a job last year and I'll be coming back to it this summer, but like there was a gap in the middle. Like, how would you format it from like the start date to the end date, or is there a special trick for kind of documenting
Yeah.
a situation like that?
Yeah, I would absolutely do start to end and indicate like if it's trainer, and I would just put seasonal or seasonal trainer so that it's clear that you're not doing this job consistently in terms of time frame, but it's something you come back and revisit whenever whenever the season is that you come back. But that is absolutely the way that I would do it, is just put beginning to end, or May 2021 to present, and then just put the seasonal aspect um in the title portion of the experience section when you write that out. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Cassandra, you have the floor.
Yes, hi. Good
Hi.
morning. Well, it's morning for me. I'm in California. But I was curious to see if you had any advice for my situation, I currently transitioned from active duty
Hmm.
and I'm now serving in the guard. So I kind of related a little bit to your story, or what you shared a little bit. So do you have like any advice for someone in my position? Or I'm technically not a veteran, but I did about 8 years active duty. So and then right now, obviously, I'm pursuing my master's in public health. So is there a community for veterans, or pretty much like military members at the school, or do you have any advice for members that
Yeah,
for situation?
yeah, I will need to research that a bit, Cassandra. I'm pretty sure there is a community, but I'm not able to provide you with the specific details of that right now. Um, so that's one part of it. As it relates to your resume, it goes back to uh again, the analyzing and the alignment. My question would be, as you complete your master's, what types of roles are you looking to pursue? And then we would look at that and then start to synthesize your active duty duties, the guard duties, and all of those things to see what we can pull out that sets you up to be the right candidate for the particular role that you are seeking. And that would just take some time to sit with you one to one to really unpack that.
Okay, so I don't want to take up too much more time,
No
but
problem.
so I actually do have my resume, draft everything, and I did get some good pointers from this presentation that I'm definitely going
Good.
to use. So I actually did set up an appointment with a career, I'm sorry, do you say, or is it career center that you call it, or?
It for us specifically, it's the CCAS Career Services, and you can
Okay.
look on Handshake for my name or Aaron Ahart. Um, and then there's the general career services, but what they did over a year ago, George Washington, instead of having everybody go to one main career center, each school has a career services component.
Mhm. Okay. So I'm sorry, one more thing.
Sure.
So with the Handshake app, because I'm still learning how to use it. So I know there's a portion, or you can actually go in there and do meetings per se, just like Zoom. How do you go about doing that? Because I was actually trying to figure that out at one point, and I was like, how do you attend a meeting on here? Because I actually was sent a link for my
Mhm.
meeting, but there's no like actual, it's different from Zoom where you can just click on it and it takes you to the meeting. So I
Okay.
just thought I asked that.
Got you. That's a little more detailed than I can get into right now.
Okay.
But I'm more than happy to help you if again, either I or Aaron walking you through how to navigate. If you're trying to set up a session with us. There's also a handshake tutorial on handshake that can support you with navigating that as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I had a quick question. I was just wondering, are we able to have access to the slides after the fact? The smart one in particular, I found really helpful, but I wanted to like sit with that with my resume at the same time.
Sure. What I'm going to do is send the replay of this
Okay.
entire session out to everyone. And if you'd like the slides, specifically the slides, I can send that. Or if the replay suffices, we of course will do that.
Yeah, the slides, I have a disability. The slides would be really great to have if possible.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
Lisa.
you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Yes, Emily.
Hi, I did have a few questions. The first is, should my like cover letter ever have any information that's not on my resume? I have trouble keeping it to my resume to one page, but then a lot of times in my cover letter, I want to say stuff that maybe like I couldn't put in my resume.
Sure. So the approach we use for cover letters, first of all, understanding that the cover letter is just an intro, right? It's not designed to go into any great detail per se. And the way we like to talk about cover letters is to think of the cover letter as a love letter. And in that love letter, the first paragraph is why you love them, meaning the organization. And that goes into having to do some research, like, why do you want to work there? What's one reason why you're interested in pursuing a particular opportunity at a particular organization? The next paragraph is why they should love you. That paragraph, you should talk about high level, some of what experiences do you have that have prepared you for this particular opportunity, or what like 3 skills that you have. And again, looking very carefully at the job announcement and determining what's important to them, right? And typically you can infer that what's important is based on how they have prioritized what they're looking for in the job announcement and highlighting just some of those things, right? And then closing it out by saying why you all should love each other, right? Would love to follow up with a interview to discuss the possibilities. Here's how you can contact me, and then you close the letter.
Mm.
Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay, terrific. And in terms of narrowing your resume down to one page, that may be a one-to-one conversation where we can support you with doing that.
Okay.
Right? Anyone else? Okay. Was this helpful? Carrie.
Yeah, sorry, real quick.
Sure.
This may be a silly question, but for references, I know they can be like sometimes they ask for contact information and like they would call the reference.
Yes.
Should we also be collecting like letters of reference, like generic letters of reference, like where the person, writes, I recommend this person for this job because XYZ, or what do you think?
Yeah, so first, you should have at least 3 references, right? For any given job. I suggest collecting more because there are going to be some references that are more relevant or powerful than others. So let's just say you're looking for a public policy role and your professor of public policy is willing to be your reference. That is going to be stronger than your history professor. You understand what I'm saying? So just keep that in mind so that you have like a good kind of collection of references. Let me just say this part. You didn't ask this, but I want to say this part too about references. Whoever you have as a reference, please stay in contact with those individuals. Keep your relationship fresh. Doesn't mean that you have to communicate with them every day, but you do want to just check in periodically and ask, especially as you're about to apply for something. I'm preparing to apply for X role. I would love to continue to use you as a reference. Is it still okay to keep you on my reference list? And then you're updating them. That's one part of it, but you're also keeping the relationship fresh. That's another part of it. And you're also, if you include them, you're not, if someone were to call from the company you're applying for a role at and just calls up this person one day, they have not heard from you in 10 years, they're going to be thrown off. That's not what you want, right? And you want to be able to give them information to say, here's the role, to give them some context. But there's so many folks who have folks on a reference list for years, but they never come back to make contact. And you may not get the person may not be able to provide a great reference because they haven't talked to you and they don't know what you've been working on. So you didn't ask for that. I'll throw that one in for free. But in terms of reference letters, folks don't really ask for those. I mean, and as it relates to a job, unless it's some type of like political appointment, or you are applying for some type of professional award or something like that before a job, typically reference letters aren't needed. However, it's great to have recommendations on your LinkedIn profile, right? And if anyone is interested, you can go to LinkedIn and take a look at my, not that it's perfect, at my LinkedIn profile under Johnette Ruffner Caesar. And towards the bottom of my profile, you will see recommendations. Recommendations are equivalent to when you're buying a product and people have left a review. They're essentially a review that gives the reader some additional insight into who you are. So absolutely, a hiring, absolutely people who supervised you, who've worked with you. Managers are more powerful, I think, of a recommendation than same level colleagues. I'm not saying don't include them, but people who have managed you in some way are powerful recommendations or references. So I hope that answers your question, Carrie.
It did. Thank you so much. My dad had been talking to me about reference letters, so I think this is just he's been out of the job hunt area for maybe a little longer.
Right.
Yeah. But yes, thank you very much. That was super helpful.
You're welcome. So we have a question. How do I make an individual appointment for resume review and career advice? Everyone should have, if you haven't set up an account on Handshake, you do have access to it as a GW student. Okay. So you want to make sure that you tap into that, create a login, and you should be able to find us, I believe, under CCAS advising and typing in my name or Erin, and I'll put her name here, Erin Ahart, and you will have the option, it's the only option for career advising. And you will see the slots that we have available on various days. And you would just type in your information and it'll ask what do you need support with? And then we will get that notification. When we receive it, we can either accept your request or decline. If we decline, it's only because we may have, a schedule conflict or something like that. But for the most part, we're able to schedule those appointments. Now, if anyone has any trouble using Handshake, you can also email us at CCAS, and I'll put it, in the chat, CCAS careers, I'm sorry, CCAS underscore careers at gwu.edu. CCS careers at gwu.edu. Give me 1 second, and I will put that in the chat here. Okay, there you go. So if you have any problems with Handshake, you can email us, but try to use Handshake. It's just a more effective way to do it, because then you're able to see our availability. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Anyone else? All right. So you all, was this helpful? Did I leave anything out? Did you get what you came for, what you need to receive? Anyone in the chat, or you can come off of mute. Great, super helpful. You're welcome, Carrie. Great, thank you, Cassandra. Okay, very good. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, Lisa. So again, we'll follow up with the replay of this session. Again, if you need back to basics, that session, we can provide you with that as well. Just let us know. And so if you have any questions, if you can feel free to email us again at the CCAS_careers if you have any questions moving forward. It was great meeting you all. Thank you so much for attending, and definitely hope you will join us for our future career readiness sessions. Hope you all have a great one.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.